Sup, nerds? I'm Tom.
I'm Wes.
And we're all matching.
That's great.
That's the whole thing.
Kami-sama is a unique, asymmetrical, area control-esque...
Tile placement.
It's building placement style game.
I think anything placement, if
Can
you
be
say
tile?
tile placement, like, you'll know what we mean when we say that.
They're workers. They're worker huts. No. But, so you're going to be placing huts on the board different ways. Everybody has a base way that they can just add a village or remove a village. Like, that's the same for everyone. But you also have unique player abilities. And there's a ton of player abilities that really change up the game.
Especially when you get the 2 expansions.
Yeah, get expansions, a ton more. And the board is going to be rotating throughout the year. So you'll be working on different quarters of the board and just, placing your villages out there to try and score points.
I do like that idea that it's circle, cut pizza style in quarters, and then you're working on what you're working on in front of you, but then it rotates. So, like, even without all of the special player abilities, we can talk about that later, but even the idea that I'm putting these things here to try and maximize my points in the best way possible, then I rotate, and now I'm trying to put those things, but the other player already put some stuff there, so he's kind of blocking. So, should I remove this, put it here? So I think that's a really clever aspect.
Each zone is actually designed a little different too, so goals are a little harder depending on the zone you're in, because the layout of where you can place the villages, sometimes there's a space in the middle that's just like you can't place anything there, so you can't even get a continuous row, or you can't pull off the shape that you're trying to pull off. So like it makes it a little different each time you're in a different...
Especially if you're there later on and other people already place things there.
It looks like it's just a 3x5 grid, but it's not.
Yeah. Especially because you don't wipe the board. You play 3 years. So you're going to essentially play in each area 3 times, and you don't clear the board in between. So by year 3, we've had 2 years of everybody playing it at least one time in the section. So by that 3rd round, the board is super cluttered up, and then you have a lot more actions as well. So you can really do a lot of adding and removing and trying to manipulate and alter the board state to what you want. But it's not like, oh, I need to have this pattern. I can just place in that pattern. I have to figure out how to get this area into that pattern.
Right, but also you're gaining points in different ways. So there's the pattern, there's the goal per year, which is just try and get this pattern. Okay, or it's not always pattern. Sometimes it's
certain areas.
Yes, different area types or whatever. But there are some area types that will give you favor or nature, and you always take whichever one's lower. But that's another way to get points. You move up. You try to move these 2 tracks up in succession, so that they're whichever one's lowest, you'll get points. But also, if you ever have the most control, which is just having the most.
Villages in a row.
In one contiguous row, then you'll be first for the draft of these cards, and there's points there.
And those cards not only are they victory points, but they also give you favor in nature and can let you manipulate the board a little more. Yeah. So you can bump those tracks up just a little bit more right before you score them, and possibly get more points by getting them as equal as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the peasant or whatever, the guy who's a half a point. I remember looking at that and thinking half a point. I remember thinking, man, that's really low. Why would they put it so low? Why can't it just be 1 point? And then I'm like, well, the idea is you really don't want to be last in this draft.
Yeah.
Because, it's either you go for the pattern to try and get the tokens, which are points. Or you go for favor in nature, which can be a lot of points. Or you want to be the first in the draft of everything, because there can be 3 or 4 points per card you get there. So you kind of want to dominate in one area or the other. If you diversify, it's not the best thing in the world, but really you want to play to your Kami's ability, because that's another whole thing.
I was going to say that every player ability, not only do you have a unique player ability of multiple, because that person has some thing that goes with them, whether it be tokens. At the beginning of the year, do something with tokens, or just some weird thing you do, but you also have 3 actions, so 2 that take 1 cube and 1 action that takes 2 cubes, that do different things around the board that really help funnel you into an optimal strategy. So you really want to play to the strength of your Kami, like Tom said, and figure out, okay, what does my Kami, what does he excel at, and how can I capitalize on that? And a lot of them are aggressive towards other players, which really helps encourage player interaction, because it's not just like, okay, so last turn Aaron did stuff here, so I've got a lot of his stuff on the board right now. How do I take it off and then he has to worry that next time? But there's stuff where like I can move you into other areas, or I can place in the area that Aaron is currently placing in. So a lot of things like that make it not just, hey, it's a solo game, you're playing in your area, but the areas rotate, and so like what you did last round affects what I'm doing this round.
One thing I can say about the commies is that they are so vastly different. I bet you they play tested it enough to know that they're relatively balanced. Like, I don't think anyone they may seem more powerful, but maybe some are more powerful early game versus late game. And I don't know about certain matchups, so there may be some matchups where they don't work out so perfect. But what I can definitely say is that there are some that are a lot more fun to play than others. It reminds me a lot of Red Dragon Inn, where in the first, like, 1 or 2 sets, the difference between the player decks was just this guy is better at getting fortitude, and this guy is better at, removing alcohol content or whatever. And then in later expansions, they came out with, like, this guy has a second deck of cards you can draw from and get random abilities. This guy has a little track you have to watch out. This guy can give people explosion tokens or whatever. And that's what it feels like. Some of them, this guy's just really good at getting favor in nature. Or this guy's just, really good at adding and removing. But this guy has these little tokens that he can give to people, and he can move this little track, and he can flip this thing, and So, like, there are some that are more fun.
I will say, I think my only complaint with the commies is some of them seem to almost drive you so hard in a single direction that when it comes to your turn, there's a very obvious thing to do. And you're like, oh, I don't really have a lot of creativity and strategy in my turn. It's just, well, obviously it'd be dumb not to do this. So I'm just going to do, like when I was playing with Daikono, the little onion person, and I'm planting the radish person. I'm planting the radishes. I was like, well, I'd be dumb not to do this again. This is exactly what I did last round, but I'd be dumb not to.
Mainly because, like, the opportunity is there. Yeah, some of these kind of play themselves, and some of them just give you more options. Again, this owl guy I was just playing with, he can move around and start doing stuff in other areas. So I have just more options of saying, well, I can place right here like I normally do, or I could fly over there and mess with that, or mess with that, or mess with that. So let me think about that, which could lead to a bit of an analysis paralysis problem.
Yeah, and again, leaning towards that strategy, like, I did really well with it. So it's not like, oh, well, this is all you can do, and it's like, oh, well, I really leaned into his strategy, and it paid off. Like, it definitely was a good thing to do, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to go off and be my own person.
One other minor complaint that I do have, other than that some of the commies are more fun than others, is that the last round can stretch out a little bit more because everybody has 5 actions times 4, and there's a lot more cluttered, so there's a lot more, stuff to think about. Well, I can remove this guy and put this, and then also there's just a lot more at stake because it's the final round. So it can drag a little bit between player turns. And it's also because everybody does all of their actions on their turn and then all their actions. So you really, when it's not your turn,
you sit there for a little bit.
If you're going last, you've got a little bit to wait before you actually have to even care about
But
the
also,
board.
what are you doing on your when it's somebody else's turn? Unless a specific player ability lets you do things or somebody can affect your things. I mean, I guess you can watch and try and, plan your strategy as things change.
But so much can change round to round that, like...
You can't plan too far ahead, for
Right.
sure. Especially, I was playing as the cat, and you flip a coin to figure out what you're doing with your action. You're like, okay, I'm going to take this action, but let me see what it actually does. So, like, that was just like, that one just sounded wacky and fun, so I was like, I want to try that one. But, yeah, playing each commie is definitely going to change the game. I feel like the drafting was kind of, early game, a really strong thing to go for, because it's really hard for people to, if they're going for a certain goal, they might not... get a lineup of, 2 villagers in a row. So if I was just taking the top spot, the main, temple,
the hut,
the
the
temple,
temple.
Yeah, temple.
and that would, make me break ties, so I got to draft first. And, drafting first, I was, able to, I'm going to score these extra points and move my nature in favor and the way I wanted it to go. I mean, it's not going to work out at the very end of the game because, you actually need to start getting lined up villages so that you've got the strength there. But if you do have that top spot, you can break ties at least.
One other small complaint that I do have is that, it looks beautiful. It's great. The board is, I mean, it's both busy and not busy at the same time because, like, it has all this detail, but it's really small. So, like, when you're looking from afar, it kind of blends together. But it's really hard. The differences between these 4 villages matter. Because when you complete the year goal in this area, you get a token of that type. You want to do it in each area, so you get all 4 tokens. And then I'm like, which one am I in? Which one is it? What does it matter? There's a teeny tiny little like flag. Yeah, that shows it. I just wish that was bigger, or it was just more obvious, like the color scheme was more obvious there or something, because that is just, I'm constantly saying which village is what. But other than that, though, I think the game is beautiful. I think it's really fun. I think it's very smooth. It sounds almost at first that it's like going to be boring. Like what I'm saying, you just add a village, remove a village, try and get patterns. You're like, oh, that doesn't sound that great. It sounds almost like it's going to be boring. But with all the variable player powers, because you have so much, all the different options you can do, and the multiple ways to get points, and the fact that it rotates, and it's, I don't know. I really like it. I think I've been recently starting to like abstract games a bit more. And I think in terms of the modern classics of the abstract games that I've been playing recently that I like, I think this, Azul, Sagrada, and Gunkimono are like in my top 5.
I really enjoy the fact that this game is never really the same. The fact, you have these different year goals that, you're only going to have 3 goals during the whole game. You have year 1, which there's only 4 to choose from. But if you have the expansions and the base game, you have a ton, like just a whole ton, like a metric ton of goal cards that, you're going to use 2 of them, and like it changes, okay, am I trying to get a pattern, or am I trying to get 2 fields and 2 of the forests, or, it just makes it different. And having all of these different commies to play as, like, you're constantly having to try a new strategy, whether it be like, okay, I'm going to place this token here, and it's going to really, make people not want to remove things, because if they remove anything from this entire section, I get, favor or nature, whichever I choose. So people are like, I'm just going to wait till that token goes away, or, be the guy that moves stuff around. Like, it's cool to have completely different ways to play it.
One other thing I forgot, and I know I just said I really like it, but here's another negative. I do think this is a 4-player game. You can't sell a game that says, hey, it's exactly 4 players. You can say 2 players, but much like I think Cyclades is a 5-player game, or I think Game of Thrones, original base game, is a 6-player game, this is 4 players. 3 players is kind of okay. We've done that. We've done it a couple of times now, and
I think it works out because like 12 divides by 3 well, and everybody gets
math
4.
Are numbers. But 2 players, you have to have this extra deck of cards where like
AI player.
Yeah, there's like an AI thing that like moves stuff around. I haven't done that, so I can't comment on it. But I kind of don't feel the desire to, because I just feel like this game shines so well at 4 players. It's perfect for 4 players. It's kind of a 4-player game.
I definitely enjoy this game. I think that, one, because when we got it, we got the Kickstarter version that had the 2 expansions, and because what the expansions add, like, it's not like you, like, change anything in the game. It mostly just, like, adds more commies and more abilities and more goals. And
there is one little thing that we haven't done. There's, like, everybody gets, like, a special shrine or something. I've never played that, though.
Okay. But for the most part, we just, like, threw everything together, so the amount of variability can change everything so much game to game, where even though essentially it is, you have your 4 zones, 4 seasons, every season you're playing a different zone, but depending on your Kami's ability and the goal's ability and like all of that, the game changes so much that I think there is a ton of replayability in here, which I think is something that like a lot of abstract games don't have, because like, thematic games have, like, well, you're playing this story, and now you're playing this story, and now you've got this person. But a lot of abstract games is like, well, now we're going to add another color you can draft, or now we're going to change the direction of the draft. But this one really has just so much replayability because everything can be so different. I think it's a gorgeous game. Like, I know Tom had his complaints about, looking at the banners. They do make something to fix that. It's called glasses.
Burn! Or you can place the pile of the tokens
I like
in
how
that zone.
you
I think that's a great
Just
idea.
place all the tokens there.
That would be way better.
Absolute. From now on, that's what we're doing. Aaron, where was that idea like 6 months ago when we had the prototype for this? Overall, I definitely think this game is worth checking out, which is why you should click the link in the description box down below.
Pick a peck.
And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.
Sweet. I see you guys got the memo. Plaid shirts. Good to go.
Colossal shirt, plaid overshirt, unbuttoned, sleeves rolled up.
Sleeves rolled up, if you have sleeves.
I'm gonna button it.
Just one button in the middle.
I think that looks better.
It just says "Ossel."
I'm gonna do like it's a suit jacket. And I'm gonna stick this out like that.
Like,
Does that look better?
I can't see your cleavage.